Some songs sound like freedom, but some were born in darkness. The 70s gave us the greatest rock anthems ever made. Songs you grew up with, songs you still sing today. But what if everything you believed about where they came from was wrong? Behind the music you loved, there were secrets. There was pain. There was a story nobody told you. These are not myths. These are facts.
Isn't the right thing to do?
And some of them will change the way you hear these songs forever. This is the disturbing true origins of rock's biggest hits from the 1970s. Stay with us, because number 1 will shake you. Number 10, Aerosmith, Dream On.
Every time that I look in the mirror.
Close your eyes for a second. Think about being 17 years old. You're broke. You've got a piano. And you're sitting alone in a room, writing a song about how fast life goes by. A song about dreams. And about the pain of wanting more than you have. That's exactly where this one started. Steven Tyler wrote Dream On as a teenager.
All these lines in my face.
Before Aerosmith was even a band, he was playing piano at a lodge in New Hampshire, and the melody just came to him. Slow, heavy, and full of something he couldn't quite name. He held on to that song for years, just waiting. When Aerosmith finally put it on their debut album in 1973,
Getting clearer, the path.
Produced by Adrian Barber and released on Columbia Records, almost nobody noticed. The single barely made a ripple. The band was still unknown. Radio wasn't ready for it. It was too slow, too dramatic, too different from everything else on the dial at the time. But here's where the story turns. 3 years later, in 1976, the label re-released the exact same recording. And suddenly, it broke into the top 20 in America. Nothing changed in the song. Everything changed in the world around it. People just needed time to catch up. Here's the thing that gets me every time I think about this. Tyler wrote that piano intro as a teenager. He had absolutely no idea it would become one of the most iconic rock openers ever put on tape.
Like dusk to dawn.
He was just a kid with a feeling he couldn't shake loose. For years, Dream On got slightly pushed aside in the Aerosmith conversation. When Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion came along, harder and louder and more radio-friendly, this one got treated like the quiet older brother, not flashy enough for the new crowd.
Isn't that the way everybody's got to do?
But the fans who were there from the very beginning, they always knew. That's the truth about this song. It never raised its voice to get your attention. It just waited. And eventually, you had to stop and listen. Stay with me, because number 9 was written in less time than it takes to eat your dinner, and it became one of the heaviest songs ever recorded. Number 9, Black Sabbath, Paranoid. You know that feeling when something happens completely by accident, and it turns out to be the best thing anyone ever made? That is the story of Paranoid. It's 1970. Black Sabbath is in the studio. They've just finished recording their second album. Their producer, Roger Bain, tells them something they don't want to hear. The album is running short. They need one more song. So Tony Iommi picks up his guitar and plays a riff, a simple, fast driving riff. And the band writes the whole thing, music and words, in somewhere around 20 minutes. That song became Paranoid. Released on Vertigo Records in the UK in 1970, it hit number 4 on the charts. It was faster than anything Sabbath had recorded before. It was almost punk rock before punk rock had a name, and it was never supposed to exist at all. The album was originally going to have a completely different title. The song title was even changed at the last minute. The lyrics, written in a rush, almost as a joke to fill the space, ended up being some of the most relatable words a confused generation of young people had ever heard. Lines about mental confusion, about not connecting with anyone, about feeling trapped inside your own head. Here's what gets me. This was filler. It was written as an afterthought, and it became their signature song. The song that millions of people around the world know better than any other Sabbath tune, because it was written so fast and so honestly that it skipped every filter. It came straight from the gut. Rock critics in 1970 didn't always take Sabbath seriously. Some reviewers called them a novelty act. Too dark, too heavy, not legitimate enough. And yet Paranoid is still being played 50 years later. And some of those reviewers are footnotes. Nobody remembers. Time has a way of correcting things. Sometimes the best things in life are made by accident. And Paranoid proves that better than almost any song I know. Next up, a song made almost entirely by one man in a basement. And the label almost said no.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number 8, Boston, More Than a Feeling. If you're enjoying this, smash that like button right now. It helps this channel more than you know. Imagine this. You work a regular job, a real engineering job, product design, 9 to 5. But at night, you go down to your basement and you build a recording studio from scratch. And you make music alone, just you and the machines and the ideas in your head. That was Tom Schultz. He worked at Polaroid, the camera company, while quietly building his own recording gear and teaching himself production. He designed and built his own guitar effects equipment. And in that basement in Massachusetts, he created demos that sounded like they came from $1 million studio. One of those demos was called More Than a Feeling. He sent those tapes around for years. Labels passed. They didn't know what to do with this enormous, polished, layered rock sound coming from a guy who wasn't even working in the industry full-time. Eventually, Epic Records signed Boston in 1976. The debut album, just called Boston, became one of the fastest-selling debut albums in American history. More Than a Feeling led the way. That opening, that clean acoustic guitar that sounds almost too perfect to be real. Then the electric wall hits and it washes over you like something breaking loose inside your chest. The production was so far ahead of its time that most people assumed it was made in a top-tier studio with a massive budget? It wasn't. It started in a basement. The song is about nostalgia, about hearing an old song and being pulled back to a moment you can never quite recapture. A feeling more than a memory. Tom Scholz said that was a very real experience for him. Music unlocking something from the past. And if you're over 45 right now, you know exactly what that feels like. You're not just hearing a rock song. You're hearing your own life flash past for about 4 minutes. Scholz's refusal to rush his music caused real problems with Epic Records over the years. There were long gaps between albums, serious legal tension. The momentum the band had built started to slow, and while their later albums had their moments, nothing quite hit the way that first record did. But the song? Kurt Cobain once said the opening of Smells Like Teen Spirit reminded him of More Than a Feeling. Take from that what you will. Number 7 was Born from Fire, actual fire. A building burning in Switzerland in the middle of the night. Number 7, Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water. December 1971, Montreux, Switzerland. Deep Purple have traveled across Europe to record their next album. They've booked time at the Montreux Casino. They've arranged for the Rolling Stones mobile recording truck to park outside. Everything is planned. Everything is ready. Then the night before recording begins. They're sitting in the audience at a Frank Zappa concert in that same casino. And someone in the crowd fires a flare gun into the ceiling. The flare catches, the ceiling catches. And within minutes, the entire casino is burning. Deep Purple watches from across Lake Geneva as smoke rises over the water in the cold December night. All their plans gone, just like that. But they don't go home. They find another location, eventually landing at the Grand Hotel, and they get back to recording. And Roger Glover, their bassist, wakes up one morning with the image still his head. Smoke rising over the dark water. He mentions it to the band, and they build a song around a true story, a real night that really happened to real people standing in the cold, watching their plans burn. Smoke on the Water appeared on the Machine Head album in 1972, released on Purple Records. And here's the thing, it was not an immediate hit. It was a deep cut on the album. Radio didn't immediately jump on it. It took time. It spread slowly. And then that riff, 4 notes, that practically every guitar student in the world has learned at some point, became one of the most recognizable sounds in rock history. Ian Gillan once joked about the millions of beginner guitarists who have learned that riff without always knowing what it's about. Without knowing there was a real fire, a real night, a real moment of watching something burn and deciding to make something from the wreckage. It carries a tragedy nobody saw coming, and the song itself almost predicted it. Number 6, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Freebird. Some songs outlived the people who made them. And Free Bird is one of those songs. And that fact hits harder the older you get. Ronnie Van Zant wrote Free Bird about the pain of leaving someone. About a man who knows he has to go, even though part of him doesn't want to. It's dressed up like a love song, but it's really something bigger. It's about the kind of freedom that always comes with a cost. About choosing the open road over everything comfortable and familiar. And then the guitar solos at the end. That long, burning, climbing outro that just keeps going and going. At some point in that solo, it stops being about a relationship. It becomes something you feel in your chest without quite being able to name it. Recorded in 1973 at Studio One in Doraville.
Places I've got to see.
Georgia, and released on MCA Records, the original album version ran nearly 10 minutes. That was almost unheard of for a rock band in that era. Radio stations wanted 3-minute songs. 10 minutes? That doesn't get spun. But rock fans didn't care. They needed the whole thing. The song was written partly with Duane Allman in mind. Allman had died in a motorcycle crash in 1971, and the band felt his absence deeply. That grief is somewhere inside the music, even if it never says his name. And then in October 1977, Ronnie Van Zant and several other members of Lynyrd Skynyrd died in a plane crash in Mississippi. And Free Bird, a song about leaving too soon, about not being able to stay, became something different overnight. It became a eulogy for the man who wrote it. For some fans, the song was almost too painful to hear after that. For others, it was the only way to hold on. Either way, it was no longer just music. It faded from mainstream rotation, partly because of the tragedy, and partly because the conversation around the band became so wrapped in grief. But anyone in this audience knows exactly what that guitar outro does to you. It doesn't need radio play. It lives in the bones. Number 5, Derek and the Dominos, Layla. This one hurts, and it was designed to. Eric Clapton was one of the most celebrated guitarists on earth in 1970. He had everything that should have made a man feel settled, but he was in love with a woman he couldn't have, Pattie Boyd, who happened to be married to his close friend, George Harrison, of the Beatles. That kind of love, desperate, impossible, eating away at you from the inside, is what Layla is built from. Clapton had been reading an ancient Persian poem called The Story of Layla and Majnun, a story about a man driven to madness by love for a woman he can never reach. When he read it, he said, it felt like his own life written in someone else's words. So he took the title, and he poured everything into a song, every ounce of longing, frustration, and pain he had been carrying. Recorded at Criteria Studios in Miami in 1970 with producer Tom Dowd, and released on Polydor Records not even under Clapton's name. He used the alias Derek and the Dominos. Maybe because the song was too exposed, too raw, too obviously about something personal he wasn't ready to fully own in public. The piano coda at the end, that slow, beautiful, aching section that feels like a storm finally going quiet, was written and played by Duane Allman, who was part of those sessions. It was almost cut from the song entirely. Sit with that for a moment. Layla, without that piano ending, would be a fundamentally different experience. For everyone who has ever heard it, the single failed on first release. The album didn't sell the way it should have. It wasn't until 1972 that it started to get real recognition, and it has since been placed among the greatest rock albums ever made. As for the love story, Clapton eventually did marry Pattie Boyd years later, after her marriage to Harrison ended. But that marriage also eventually fell apart. The song outlasted all of it. Some things have to hurt before they can be beautiful. Layla knew that from the very first note. Number 4, The Who Behind Blue Eyes.
Be the sad man behind blue eyes.
Most people think this is a simple ballad about feeling alone, and on the surface it is. But underneath it, the story is stranger and more interesting than that. Pete Townshend wrote, "Behind Blue Eyes for a Villain." Literally, he was deep in an enormous project called Lifehouse, a science fiction rock opera set in a dark future. And the song was written for a character named Jumbo.
No one knows what it's like.
A man who looks powerful and in control from the outside, but who feels misunderstood, trapped, empty inside. A man asking you to look past the bad things he's done and see the pain that drove him there. Lifehouse was never completed. Townshend pushed himself to his mental limits trying to bring it all together, and it eventually collapsed under its own weight.
To be hated, to be faded.
He has spoken about how close to breaking point that project pushed him. But several of the songs survived, and they appeared on Who's Next in 1971, produced by Glyn Johns and released on Track Records. Behind Blue Eyes was one of them. Freed from the character it was written for, the song became something everyone could claim.
To telling only lies.
Anyone who has ever held anger beneath a calm surface. Anyone who has felt invisible despite being in a room full of people. Anyone who performs fine for the world, while something quiet and painful tears at them from the inside.
But my dreams, they aren't as empty.
They found themselves in this song. The structure alone tells the whole story. The first half is gentle, fragile, almost hesitant. Then the band explodes pure frustration, pure release. Then back to quiet again. It maps exactly what it feels like to be a person keeping things together while falling apart inside.
As my conscience sees.
It was never a massive chart hit, but it was covered over and over again. It found its way into film and television, and the quiet moments of millions of people's lives, because it named something most people couldn't name for themselves. Songs written for fictional characters sometimes carry more honesty than anything a real person feels safe enough to say out loud. Number 3, Fleetwood Mac, Go Your Own Way. We're halfway through this. Which song has hit you hardest so far? Drop it in the comments right now. I genuinely want to know. Picture this situation. You and your partner have just broken up. It was painful, it was messy. There's anger still sitting in the room between you. And now you have to go into a recording studio together.
How can I, when you won't take it?
Stand next to each other, make music, and act like everything is under control. That is what Fleetwood Mac did in 1976 and 1977. And the album Rumors is the document of exactly how that felt. Go Your Own Way was written by Lindsey Buckingham about Stevie Nicks. They had been together for years as a couple, as musical partners, as a unit. When it ended, Buckingham did what artists do. He put the pain directly into a song. His version of events, his anger, his hurt, all of it pressed into vinyl. He produced it alongside Ken Kayat and Richard Deschutes, and it was released on Warner Brothers Records as the opening track and lead single from Rumors. It opens the album like a door being kicked off its hinges. But Stevie Nicks hated parts of it. She felt certain lines painted her in a way that wasn't fair or true. She felt exposed and misrepresented. And yet she stood in that studio. She sang harmonies behind his voice. She performed it live on stage with him, night after and for years that followed.
You can call it another lonely day.
She has talked about it in interviews, how difficult it was. To stand next to someone who wrote those words about you, to add your voice to a song that hurt you, to be professional when everything inside you was saying something else. And somehow that tension between them made the performance electric.
You can go your own way.
Audiences felt it without always understanding why. Something in the air during those shows was too real to be staged. 'Cause it wasn't staged. It was happening in real time. Go Your Own Way reached number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. Rumors went on to sell over 40 million copies worldwide. One of the best-selling albums in history, built entirely on heartbreak, resentment, and the refusal of 4 people to walk away from the music, even when everything else around them was coming apart. That's not just rock history. That's people being incredibly human under almost impossible pressure. Number 2, the Eagles' Hotel California. Let's slow down here, because this one deserves the full story. Hotel California was released in 1977 on Asylum Records, produced by Bill Shimchick. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The guitar outro, performed by Don Felder and Joe Walsh trading lines back and forth, is one of the most celebrated solos in rock history. It won a Grammy. It became the defining sound of California rock at its peak. But for years, and I mean decades, the song carried a shadow over it. And that shadow started with a theory. In the late 70s and into the 80s, at the height of what people later called the Satanic Panic, a story spread. People began saying the hotel in the song was a real place. A converted mansion on California Street in San Francisco. A location reportedly connected to Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan. The theory moved through churches, through communities, through concerned parents groups. Some people believed it absolutely. There are different versions of how that rumor started and why it spread so fast. Some say the dark imagery in the song left a vacuum that people filled with their own fears. Others say the band's silence on the meaning, at least in the early years, let the mystery breathe and grow bigger than they intended. In interviews over the years, Don Henley addressed it directly. He said the song was never about a haunted location. It was never a satanic reference. He said it was about the American dream, specifically the dark side, about excess, about the music industry and the world it creates around you, about a culture of pleasure that looks like paradise from the outside and traps you the moment you step inside.
There she stood in the doorway, recognition.
The famous line about checking out but never leaving Henley has said that was about addiction, about ambition, about an industry that takes and takes while always smiling at you. And the band was living that story themselves. They were at the very peak of their fame, surrounded by everything that fame brings.
I was thinking to myself, this could be.
The song was their mirror, their warning to themselves, dressed up as something you could dance to. But here's the part of the story that hurts the most to look at. Within the band, The pressure was building. Tensions that had been growing for years between members were approaching a breaking point. Don Felder, the guitarist who wrote the foundational music of Hotel California, would eventually have serious legal disputes with the band over songwriting credits, compensation, and the way business was handled. His account of events and the band's account of events differ. In his memoir and in interviews, he painted a picture of a fractured internal culture. The Eagles disputed much of what he said. There are different versions of the truth depending on who is telling it.
There were voices down the corridor, thought I heard them say.
But think about that. The song that described a trap you can never escape, that made it couldn't escape their own version of that trap. The Fractures eventually broke the Eagles apart in 1980. For 14 years, they didn't make music together.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
That's why Hotel California is not just a great rock song. It's a document. It's a confession. It's a photograph taken from inside something that was already starting to fall apart, even when it looked perfect from the outside.
Such a lovely place, such a lovely place.
That's why this song isn't just music, it's a mirror held up to everything the 1970s was pretending to be, and now. Number 1, the most debated, most analyzed, most celebrated rock song ever made. And the real story behind it is more complicated and more fascinating than almost anything you've heard.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history, and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number 1, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. Let's take our time with this one, because it deserves every second. Stairway to Heaven was not released as a single. The band refused. It was simply placed on the 4th Led Zeppelin album in 1971, album with no title on the cover, just 4 mysterious symbols chosen by each band member, released on Atlantic Records, produced by Jimmy Page. Recorded partly at Island Studios in London and partly at Headley Grange in Hampshire, a converted Victorian poorhouse deep in the English countryside. Cold stone walls, long hallways, the kind of place that makes you feel like history is sitting right next to you. The song runs about 8 minutes. It opens with one of the most recognizable acoustic guitar passages ever recorded. Robert Plant has said the lyrics came to him almost automatically one night at Headley Grange. He sat by a fire with a notepad, and the words appeared faster than he could write them. Whether you take that literally or not, the lyrics are dense with imagery: a lady, a stairway, a piper, signs on a wall, a new day dawning. What does it mean? People have argued about that for 50 years. And maybe that argument is part of the point. Maybe the song was always meant to hold more than one answer. Now, the controversies. And yes, there are two of them. The first hit in the 1980s. A pastor in California claimed that a specific section of the song, when played backward, contained satanic messages. He played his version on television. In 2016, Led Zeppelin went to court. The estate of Randy California, the guitarist from a band called Spirit, claimed that the opening guitar arpeggio of Stairway to Heaven was taken from a Spirit instrumental called Taurus, written in 1967. This was not a small claim. Stairway to Heaven is one of the most commercially valuable songs in music history. Some say the resemblance is obvious and direct. Others point out that descending arpeggios in that style existed in folk music and classical music, long before either song was written. That neither band invented the pattern. That borrowing, adapting, and transforming musical ideas was woven into the very fabric of how rock music was, made in that era. The judge ultimately ruled in Led Zeppelin's favor, but the case went to appeals. There were multiple rounds in court, and while the final decision sided with the band, the conversation it opened about inspiration versus borrowing, about originality versus influence, about where music comes from, and who it belongs to, that conversation is still happening in the music world right now. In interviews, it's been said that the rock scene of the late 1960s and early 1970s was a world where musicians absorbed everything around them. Blues, folk, classical, jazz, Eastern music. It all went in and came back out as something new. The lines between influence and imitation were genuinely blurry in that world. It never was a clean story, and the music that moves us the most rarely comes from clean, comfortable places. That's why Stairway to Heaven is not just a song. It's a question that rock music has been trying to answer for over 50 years.